Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to focus on some unit sounds mixed in with vocabulary words. We're going to focus also on parsing a word so we can help understand our vocabulary words. We're also going to take our lesson into understanding nouns a little bit better, and we're going to touch a little bit on some grammar. We're going to start moving into that direction, which is going to be kind of fun. I'm actually really excited about it. I'm excited to teach this lesson. I have done lots of studying, and I'm excited about some of the words that I chose. I really worked hard to try to get the words that would help you understand our language better. So we're going to focus on unit sounds A-G-E, I-T-E, I-N-E, and A-T-E. Now, we're going to start with A-G-E. Now, A-G-E says idge in English words, and that's really what we're going to focus. I am going to bring some other sounds into A-G-E so you can see, but we're really going to focus on A-G-E says idge at the end of a multi-syllable word. Now, I always say that A-G-E at the end of a multi-syllable word is a unit, and a unit syllable. And so, well, if it says age at the end of a multi-syllable word, why isn't it a silent E? I think it's just confusing if we put it in that area. So if we just look at it, it's a multi-syllable word. Now, we're not talking about a word that has lots of suffix on it if their base word is a one-syllable word, and like wage, we're not talking about that kind. If it's in a multi-syllable word, it really sits at the end and it has suffix onto it. We're still going to call it a unit syllable unless somehow the suffix actually changes a little bit. Sometimes that will happen. Age at the end of words, right, boys? At the end of multi-syllable words is where we're going to find this. So now AGE can be a suffix, but it can also just sit in your base word. Now, what does AGE say most of the time, boys? Idge. Idge. Okay, so that will help you immensely with your spelling. We don't spell idge, I-G-E. We don't spell it I-G because then it would say ig, because you need that E for the G to say J. So we spell A-G-E, we spell idge, A-G-E. So if you can remember that, that will help your spelling in leaps and bounds. Ossifrage, see? We don't spell it I-G-E or I-J because J's don't belong at the end of our words. So they had to have something that would be there for the J, and it's the G-E. And we've put the A there. I don't know why, but that's what's there. Literidge. Now this one's kind of fun. Normally, you would think it is a three-syllable word, which is going to be the accented syllable right here. What do you guys think? Is it going to be that one or that one? Now, they're both closed. This right here is your prefix, AP. It's actually here. It's going to say short sound, and the schwa comes here. So if you don't really know the word, play with the word a little bit until it's like, oh, it's appanage. And this is the accented syllable in this word. So that, and this one turns to schwa because it's not accented. Baggage. Now this is doubled. We're gonna go over a little bit of the doubling rule because this is your base word. This is actually a suffix right here. And you're gonna look for the vowel consonant before you add on your vowel suffix. Now remember, if you're doing the doubling rule, we add on our vowel suffix. That one's a cotage, okay? So when you're spelling idge, you spell it A-G-E. What does this word say? Garage. Garage. Now what happened there? I did throw in some so you can see what happens. The A-G-E is not saying idge right there. This is a French word. So if it says auge, you spell auge, A-G-E. Okay? So we did throw in a couple French words so you could see how that works. Garage. Now, these ones right here, wage, cage, age, page, they are not unit syllables. They will make They're silent E syllables. It's forcing this long A to be long, this E. And so see how it's a one syllable word right here. One syllable, so it's going to be a silent E syllable. This E is going to affect that A. So it's not going to be the unit syllable where it says idge. So if you see that it's sitting in a one syllable word, you know it will not say the unit sound. Scrimmage. Well, how come this is doubled? This one could be a little bit confusing. If you say scrimmage, the M falls over here. If you can, that might help you with your spelling. This one is a little bit more confusing. Floor-idge, this is a suffix, you just add it on. Damage. Now, why isn't this doubled? Because the M actually, damn-idge. Damn-idge. So if you can hear where it falls, that will help you with your doubling rule. Same with this one, man-idge. That's why this one is not doubled. Because it actually, this N, what? Did you have a question? This N actually falls over here, so it forces this to be closed. And so it's going to say it's short sound. So this is the accented syllable, and typically this will not be accented over here. I'm sure there's an exception to the rule, but it will land here. So you know that this closed A will say it's accented sound, which is ah, right? Ah. So savage, same with here. You can hear it fall. Sav. And it's accented sound. Close A's turn to schwa if it's not accented, but this is accented, so it will say its sound that you would expect, which is what? Ah, good. So it says it's apple sound, right? Now this one is a suffix right here. If you see an OY in the middle of a word, you know that you have a suffix added onto it. This is its very own word, voyage. Dosage. Lineage. So here, when you can hear I, the long I sound, you know where it breaks because it's going to force that. You have to have an open syllable. So you know that there's no way that could be doubled. Because if you did L-I-N-N-A-G-E, that says lineage. And then it's still wrong because that's not how you spell lineage. But, so if that helps you a little bit. Same with dosage. So it falls here because you can hear that long O sound. Do, right? And then sige. Okay? And it breaks here. This is long. Okay, carnage. How do we spell idge at the end of a multi-syllable word? A-G-E. A-G-E. Collage. So I underlined this. Oh, and I underlined there. So you know right here. This is what kind of word? Collage.
It's a French word.
It's a French word. Okay? So that will help you. This is the accented syllable right here. It's saying ah. Collage. Now, portage. This is actually right here a Latin root, means to carry. Portage. But how do we spell idge at the end of a multi-syllable word? Nice and loud, boys. A-G-E, okay? Average. This is a unit on here. A-G-E. Orphanage. Now this where it's combined with Greek. See, you know this because of the PH. Orphanage. So orphan is your base word right there, right? And you're adding on your suffix. Now, if you're adding on your suffix idge, how are you going to spell idge?
A-G-E.
A-G-E. Footage. See how this is a suffix right here. We're going to add it on. A-G-E. Now you do have to follow your spelling rules when you're adding on your AGE because it's a vowel suffix right here. Well, either way, you have to follow your spelling rules when you're adding this on, whether it's a vowel suffix or not. Because if you have a Y and you always change the Y to an I. One is thurlage. AGE says age at the end of a multi-syllable word. How do you spell age at the end of a multi-syllable word? AGE. Anecdotage is that word, and it matters to get the accent right. Okay? Voyage. Again, I wanted to point out if you have an OY, you know you have a base word in voyage. So we have the vowel team OY. We know OY can only sit at the end of a word. So you know you have, this is a suffix right here and this is a base word. Does that make sense? And you follow the spelling rules. Now the spelling rule, when we add on to this, do we change this Y? No, because it's a vowel team. If you have a vowel right here in front of your Y, you don't change the Y. So as a rule, you could say you don't change vowel teams, but it's also important to say if you have a vowel right here, then you don't change the Y when you're adding on your vowel suffix. Now here's a couple more. Are these unit syllables?
No.
No, why? Why do you know that they're not a unit syllable? Unit syllable. This is super important for you to know that, for you to read better.
Because it doesn't have a unit in it.
Well, yeah, it's one syllable. Look, there's only the A and the E. That's the only reason. This is the reason why you know this is not a multi-syllable word, because it's a one-syllable word. It only has the E and the A. So if you look at these have, like this has 3 vowels. All of them has 3 or more vowels. So if you have 3 or more vowels, you know you have a multi-syllable word. But if you only have the 2 vowels, you know that this is going to be a silent E syllable and it will not be a unit syllable. So you know that because of that, that the A is going to be long, okay? And it's going to say stage. Same thing here, you know, because look, there's only 2 vowels and that E is affecting that A. It's going to say sway. So brokerage. Also, when we look at this, if we're understanding what the AGE means, don't you think you're going to understand the word better? So let's look at see what AGE actually means. Let's look at that before we go in any further. So it means a collection, a set, or group. So there's another definition, a process or action indicating a state, a condition, or we have a relationship right here. And so if we look at baronage, that would be a relationship. If we look at percentage, see how age is right on to percent, age is right on to baron, percentage would be a condition. So if you look at that, it will help you understand, okay, what's going on in these words. So helping you understand what. So it's hard to remember every single meaning of every single word or all of the roots and all of their Latin, all of your suffixes. But if you tackle and you actually do learn the main ones that affect the words that you speak, it will help you so much in your language. So and age is one that is in our language in multiple words. Does that make sense, Polly? Okay, so now we have the definition. So you can say brokerage. And so when you're looking at that and you're saying, well, how do I parse this word to help with my vocabulary words? Well, you can look and try to figure out where that is, and then you can look up and see, well, what is a broker? Well, we have another suffix on here that means it's a person, and what does broke mean? So broke can mean different things in this word. So that's how you would parse that and then help it with your vocabulary words. Now, encourage. Courage is your base word. This would be a suffix and you would add it on. So how do you spell age at the end of a multi-syllable word, boys?
AGE.
AGE. And so you would add that on. But if it's a suffix, how are you going to spell age? Age. This one right here, I put in here because this can be confusing. This is not when I said most likely you're going to have one right here, but this one is a vowel team. So you will sometimes have it where you have 3 page. See, this is not a unit syllable. This is a 1-syllable word with a vowel team that needs the j sound at the very end. So they're spelling it with a GE because you can't have a J at the end of our language, right? So it has to be spelled with a GE. And they needed, you would think that they would spell it like that, but they didn't. And you just don't know sometimes why. There's a reason why they did that. Siphonage. So you know that this is a Greek word, right? And age, how do you spell age at the end? Yeah, so when you see AGE at the end of a multi-syllable word, most likely say age. And then if it's not making the right sound, then you can change it a little bit. Non-vintage. So, see? It means non means not, and vintage. So this is actually just part of the word. And you would look at that when you parse your word and see, okay, what does age mean in this word? And you would want to look at this part of the word. Well, what does that mean? And then if you know your prefixes, you would know that that means not. Look what vint means. You look it up, see if it's going to step Greek origin, if it's going to hit in the Latin origin, and actually find the definition for what vint actually means. And then it will help you, because you have what age means, and then it will help you understand what this whole thing means right here. Now, curtilage. Same thing here. There's your age. Parse your word so you can actually understand your vocabulary better. So when you break it apart, see what cur means, and sometimes this will have the whole meaning. So look and see, is it this the whole meaning? You know that this will have its own meaning. So just see where it's going to break and what part of that meaning it's going to be. Okay? Now, suffrage, this is kind of fun because you know, look, this one is your chameleon prefix right here. See that, boys? Fridge, F goes with F. That's how you know that this is doubled. Suffrage, you actually can hear it in this one. Sometimes you can't hear that double F. But sometimes in prefixes, a lot of times in prefixes, you can hear the double F, suffrage, but sometimes you can't. Frontage, okay, you have age, you know it, look at it, find where it's at, and then you have front. And parse it and understand what front means, understand what age means, and then you can put it together and truly understand what your word means. It's because sometimes when you get in the definition, sometimes it's, oh yeah, I get that definition, and then other times it's confusing and you don't get the definition right away. This part I think is so fun, how we're gonna parse this word apart, but we're gonna go even deeper, and I thought it was just really fun to put together. So we're going to talk about ATE, and the first word I pulled out is aviate. Now this word came about or came to life between 1885 and 1890. So this word is where it actually originated from, and it came back formation from aviation. So aviation, typically it's the other way around where you have the T-I-O-N, and this would mean something else, but it's not. They actually looked at aviation and made this word. Isn't that interesting, boys? So now it does sit in the past participle position, and the past participle is aviated. Okay? Now aviate right here, it could mean it's somebody flying in a plane. So it could mean the pilot, or it could mean just a passenger. So, but aviated, once you put your past tense ed, it will be a verb. Okay? Sometimes things change up a little bit, but it will be a past participle ed. Now, aviated, what happened right here with the ed? What sound did it make?
Ed.
Ed. Why is it making ed?
Because there's a T.
Yeah, so we talked about that. A T or a D, it makes this ed sound, ed. If it's a non-vibrating sound, it makes the t sound, and if it's a vibrating sound, it makes the d sound. Other than that, T say ed or id, and D say ed or id, depending on what's in front of it. Okay, so remember, past participles can be really confusing. If you heard, well, you have a dangling participle there. Well, what does that mean? If you really don't understand your participles, then you're not going to understand what a dangling participle is. So we have participles will fall into the simple past, and then you can have the perfect past in the perfect position. So, but it will be an ed. We do have irregular verbs that into the past will be ed. You guys remember that? Or if it's in the perfect, they will go ed. But we have irregular verbs that change and will have its own sound, and it will not be the ed sound. And they are called, you guys remember? I just said it. Irregular verbs. So these are, and they are considered, if they're an irregular verb, if they're an irregular past participle, it will be still, if it's irregular, it'll still be a past participle. It doesn't matter if it's an ed or not. Does that make sense, boys?
Yeah.
Okay, past participle. If you need to understand that this ed is a participle, okay? It's a participle. That's what it is. INGs will be participles, not like swing, that doesn't count. Your suffix ing, like swinging, would be your participle. So INGs and EDs will be your participles, and you need to just remember that, because we're going to talk about that in another lesson. But just knowing that will help you when we start moving into your grammar a little bit stronger. So, but your verbs can have irregular past participles that do not have the ed, but it's still a past participle sitting in an irregular position or part of the word. Okay, so now we have aviate was formed out of the word aviation. So they took this word and they said, well, I want aviate. Well, so where is the origin from the word? Where's the origin from that word? So aviation means the process of flight, or the process of being a bird. So if you look over here, aviation came from the French, and they took it from the Latin root. Okay? AVI means a bird. So if you think about a bird, what does a bird do?
It flies. It
flies. So it's the process of being a bird. And so that's how aviate came to be, because you're going to be flying in an airplane, whatever. You could be the pilot, or you could be the actual person that flies in the plane. Does that make sense, boys? So now we have aviation, which its definition, sorry, I ran out of space, so I know this is all clungered up. Now this one, I thought this was so interesting. Oh, Daniel, thank you. Let's like zero in on this. So we have aviation, and this is the definition of aviation, which is really interesting. We have military. Is a U.S. military aircraft collectively. Now I want to really focus on the collective part. Now collective means all together, right? And we have our military is a collective noun, and we're going to go over our collective nouns. So a collective noun is a noun that is many things but brought together to make one thing. And it matters that you know what a collective noun is, because it's going to help you put your subjects and your predicates together properly. Now you can't just say my nouns and my verbs because you have to have a subject. You can't just say nouns and verbs because nouns can sit in many different places in a sentence. You have to say the subject and the simple subject and the simple predicate. Simple subject and your simple predicate have to match. Singular goes with singular, plural goes with plural. And so when you have a collective noun like military, because military means the entire aircraft, the U.S. military aircraft, it means that all of it together. And so that is a collective noun, and it takes the singular verb most of the time. So singular noun goes with singular verb. And so even though that looks like it's all big, it's actually singular. Does that make sense, boys? So now aviation also means aeronautics. Now aeronautics is the study or practice of all aspects of flight through the air. And then it also means the study of the piloting and navigation of aircraft, the design and construction of aircraft. So if you're understanding aeronautics, if you're understanding aviation or aviate, you're going to understand and truly understand this word in general. We're parsing the word. So now
aeronautics. Well, what does that mean? Let's break that word apart and parse that. So we have naw means boat. And if you think about, if you've ever read or listened to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Nautilus, it's used right here. It's a submarine it's a make-believe submarine that goes underneath the water, and that's what it's named after, the Nautilus. And I recommend that you read that book, because when you do, you'll understand people talking in podcasts or in movies. I think it's in Journey 2, isn't it, the Nautilus in Journey 2, that you'll actually understand really what that movie means when they're talking about it because of that book. And then aero means air. And they're both Greek right here. And so for you to actually know what the meaning of those, aero is in lots of words. Not is in lots of words. So you're going to say, well, aero means air. Naw means boat. And so you're going to be able to actually say, oh, I think I understand the meaning of that a little bit better. So now let's look into aeronaut. So this is more of the English version, and aeronautica is more of the Latin version, and they brought that together and made aeronautics right here. And it originated in the early 19th century. But if you look at this word, so this has a meaning. So aero means air, not means boat. And so this person is somebody that is maybe flying in an hot air balloon or something that dealt with the air. That's what this one's, somebody that flies it. Okay? And so when you look at this is a noun. So it's because it's a person. And this is a singular, and then you have plural with the plural S. But when you look at this right here, this is a collective noun. Aeronautics, if aeronautics is all of this, and so it's collective. So this, even though it looks like it has the plural S, because it doesn't on this word, this S just actually goes with this word. This takes the singular verb because this is singular, and so you would take the singular verb. So if you are not sure if your collective noun is going to take the singular verb, then I would look it up, because most of the time collective nouns take the singular verb, because singular goes with singular, plural goes with plural. Okay, so now let's talk about this part first. I was really hoping I can get it on my board, but I couldn't. So now we know about those type of things, and then we're going to go into astronaut. So it's ancient Greek, and it means a person who has been trained for traveling in space. Okay, so now this astronaut is used in formation of compound words. So when you think, it's also called Greek combining forms. So when you use a Greek word, put them together, you form another word. So astronaut is two Greek words put together. Okay, so astro means pertaining to the stars or celestial bodies as a space flight. So that's what astro means. So when you're putting astro with not, that means a boat. So it's somebody that actually can fly in a boat. So it's a spaceship now, but that's how they put it together using this Greek terminology. And now you understand, oh my gosh, I understand what that word means. You don't have to guess. This word says astrophotography, and it is a compound word of Greek words. And so we have astro, photo, and graph. Astrophotography. And I typically read it backwards, but not always. So we have astro, that means pertaining to stars or the celestial bodies as space flight. So we have astro, so we know it's going to pertain to the sky, to the stars. And we have photo, which means light. And we have graph, that means write or record. So we are going to write and record the light from the stars. So that's how you can read that. Now remember, when you're putting a word in there that says awe, and especially if you put it by graph, or when you have two words that have double O's next to it, let's say we have an O here, and like biology, see how ology starts with an O and bio ends with an O. You would drop one of those O's, but you would say ah. Photo, see how it's saying the ah sound, photography. So be careful. See right here, it doesn't say ah. It's just saying astro. So it's saying it's long sound, but here it's not. You just need to be careful when you're putting them together to get the right sound for that. But once you start, when you're parsing verb or noun, we started with aviate and then went to aviation, then we went to aeronautics, then we went to aeronaut, and then astronaut. And then you can get a feel of what all of the different words that are combined with being in space. So we're going to go over collective nouns. Now, remember what a collective noun says is it's when a group of something is put together and it's referred to as one thing. It's referred to as singular. Most of the time, collective nouns will take the singular, and then you would have to find the singular verb to go with that collective noun. Oftentimes, though, you'll have your singular noun connected to a prepositional phrase that shows plural, so don't mess that up. I'll go over one of those. We have different areas. We have people, animals, and things. Remember what nouns are. What's a noun, boys?
A person, place, thing, or idea.
Right. Have people. And there are so many collective nouns. I just chose a few that I thought you would think was really fun and you would recognize, or maybe you wouldn't even recognize them and you would want to take them in and look them up. So we have board, like a board of directors. It's a group of people. Choir, class, committee, family. So it's a group of people. So family will take the collective, it will take the singular when you put it together. Group, jury, panel, staff, colony, army, league, team, electorate, crew, band, parliament, audience. So sometimes you'll have matching ones that will be a collective noun but in a different section. So like we have a flock of birds or
Flock of geese.
oh, I like that. So a flock of geese, or herd, a herd of deer, or herd of elk, a pod, like parliament. See how parliament, we have two different collective nouns. One could be people, one could be in the animal. Yeah, honey.
Like a school of fish.
Oh, I love that. So if you heard what he just said, he said school of fish. So school is taking the singular, but then we have a fish that would, well, fish could be singular or plural, but the plural, the of fish, you need to be really careful because that's in a prepositional phrase and it will not be part of your subject most of the time. But that's way advanced, so we'll talk about that later. So we have parliament, like a parliament of owls. Kettle, prickle, I thought this one was fun. This is a prickle of porcupines. So that's another example where we have prickle. See how prickle is singular, and then you have of porcupines. Porcupines is plural, and then we have, so you have to match prickle with a singular verb. That makes sense. Muster, mischief, swarm. What do we have for swarm, guys? Swarm of bees, swarm of flies, swarm of, you know.
Swarm of anything that flies.
Okay, not anything that flies, most likely a bug. Right? Bloat or thunder. This one was fun. This is a hippopotamus. Crash. Do you guys remember what a crash was? It's rhinoceros. A bunch of rhinoceri. Colony. So we can have colony can be people, or colony could be a colony of ants. We have an army. Also, we have a group of things. We have group or chain, a fleet. So aircraft carriers, there's a fleet on the ocean, right? Glossary, a glossary for words. Bundle. So these ones you wouldn't just say the group, I guess, unless you really know what you're talking about, but most of the time you're going to have a prepositional phrase also describing what the bundle is. Of bananas, see how that takes the plural. It's the plural noun, but it's sitting in the object position in a prepositional phrase. It's not your subject. It's sitting in the noun position of that prepositional phrase, but it is not your subject. And what you have to really match up is your subject and your verb, not the noun that is in your prepositional phrase. And we have cluster. Just some examples of collective nouns. And they take what? Singular or plural verbs? Collective nouns.
Singular.
They take the singular verb. Okay? So just remember that. Most of the time, a collective noun will take the singular verb. And it's really important that you understand what a collective noun is. So oleate, a preparation that contains oleic acid as the principal ingredient. So trying to understand that definition might be a little bit, well, this is pretty easy, but what is oleic acid? Have I ever heard of it? Have you guys ever heard of it? No. And you'll see that a lot of these unit sounds and suffixes actually sit in the chemistry world, the science world, and so you're going to have hard words that you might not have in speaking to somebody. So that's where this really comes out, where scientists, and my daughter-in-law she teaches chemistry and physics, and she loves math. And so she would really love this world, and thank heavens we have scientists and chemists to help with so many things in the world. But anyways, but I wouldn't know this. So then this is pretty easy to understand, don't you guys think? You're preparing, it contains oleic acid as the principal ingredient. This is the main ingredient, right? So, well, what is oleic acid? Oleic acid. Well, it's obtained from oil, and it's mostly obtained from vegetable oils. It could be obtained from other oils, but it's mostly obtained from here. So, but I'm really still, what is that? So when we go into another definition of oleate, we have, it's an ester of salt of oleic acid. So it's a salt. See how this is a preposition? Right here is your noun. So we know it's a salt and then of oleic acid. So now, well, what's an ester? Well, let's dive in even further. So if you go into the origin, and that's where I think is the easiest thing and the proper way to really understand a definition fully, is to go into the origin. It's Latin. Well, it's Latin right here, and it means either or either right here. So then we have, well, what does ester really mean as a definition? So here I put down 3 definitions to understand what ester means. And here's the first one. The element believed in ancient civilization to fill all space above the moon, stars, and planets to support the propagation of electromagnetic waves. All right, well, could that be what we need here? Probably not. So then we have rare, word for air, and then a colorless, flammable liquid. So you need to decide, well, so let's say you're trying to figure out this word because you're writing a paper or something for school, or maybe you're writing a book and you're trying to figure out a great word that you want to use in your book. Or maybe, so many times people, when they're they take Latin and they make words and they put names together to have their own individualized part in there. So you're trying to figure out this word. You have right here. Now, when you look right here, I was investigating the word a little bit more, and it's the existence of ether was disproved by American physicists Albert Michelson and Edward Morley. So in 1887. So this part right here, it was disproved. So you would really study this now is really in our history and history books. But why would we even have that still up here? Because that's what it's so important for us to understand our history and what people used to think. So we can just say, okay, this is out to really understand what we need to understand, because this is an ingredient. We kind of knew this was out, but it's still, it's good to know that this was disproved. So is it going to be a rare word for air or a colorless flammable liquid? You need to decide what you need to do to understand this definition. Does that make sense, boys? Okay, so, but look at this. We have a homophone. And I just want you guys to understand the homophones out there. They are, here's one, air, air, and air. They say the same sound, they're spelt differently, and they have different meanings. And so if you put in the wrong word when you're spelling or writing, you're gonna have, so be very careful with your homophone. Sometimes when you use voice correct or anything like that, they'll put in the wrong word and you have to correct it. So we have this air, it's the air in the air that we breathe. It also has a couple other meanings. Air as in you've made a mistake, and air like heir to the throne. These are confusables, so don't confuse them. This means, you guys know what this means? This either? Well, it means either I'll go to the store and you stay here with the children, or you go to the store and I'll stay here. So it's either or. That's what this one is. But this, see how you can get confused on spelling? This,
I'm not sure.
it's the same sound pretty much. Because TH says two different sounds. It says th and th. And you can hear that in this one, either, right? Also, this right here, it is a classical myth, a legend about clear skies or heaven. I enjoyed that definition, so I wanted to put it in there. Okay, now we have the word eluate. It's in chemistry. The solution of solvent and dissolved matter resulting from elution. Did you learn very much from that? What does eluate? We did, right? But it's still a little bit confusing. So trying to decipher, well, really, do I want to use this word? Or if you have your dictionary words or your vocabulary words in school, it's important to actually understand the definition and go in and parse this word apart and truly understand what does it mean. So if you go in here and you say, okay, well, let's just make sure we understand what solution is. Well, I go in there and we have 9 definitions of solution. Okay, we have 5 different definitions of solvent, 7 different definitions of dissolve, and 1 definition of illusion. So that would take quite a bit of time to say, okay, which definition am I going to use to help understand eluate, right? So that might take you a lot of time. So let's look at remate, having branches. Now this word came into play in 1895, between 1895 and the 1900s. So this is actually a pretty new word, which I think is really interesting. It's an adjective. Do you guys remember what an adjective is? What is an adjective? It describes a noun. It's really important that you understand because it will help you with your writing of words. And because we need 3 adjectives to describe this word, and you're like, what's an adjective? What's an adjective? Well, it describes nouns. They don't describe anything else but a noun. What is a noun?
A person, place, or thing.
Yep, person, place, thing, or idea. So that's what an adjective does. So this is an adjective, meaning having branches. So it can get confused by these words. Ramus, to collect together or to gather. Now, ramos, having many branches. These ones actually get really confused. They're confusables. But let's go down into the Latin origin. Ramus means branch. So if you look at RAM, 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 that right there, these have everything, these words right here has everything to do with a branch. So it's going to help you understand these all have something to do with branches, but you need to choose which one is the one that I actually need to use. Which one is the one that I need to understand the most and use properly. So when we also look, it's also really important to understand what your suffix is. ATE equals a suffix. It means a rank, office, or a group of having a certain function. All right? So when you're looking at that, raymate, well, it's a group of having a certain function of branches. Do you see that? So we have, this is a branch and it's functioning in a certain way. Does that make sense? That's what this one is. It's functioning in a certain way. And they took it from the Latin root, which was only really 120 years ago. Okay, in our language, I feel that that's a pretty new word. Now, I want to go back up. So now that we kind of broke that apart, let's go back up to and break this one. Instead of just hashing it out with all of these different definitions, let's go and look at the Latin roots of this. We're going to take it from both of these words. So we're understand eluate and elution. So we can understand these words. So let's go in and find the Latin origin. So elute is Latin. So we have E, and do you guys remember your prefix for E? It comes out of the EX. We have E. Now remember, that is your chameleon prefix, but it's Latin. Those chameleon prefixes are Latin. Okay, boys? And we have the E. It's coming out of the EX, which means out of or from. And then we have lute, means to wash. Now you need to be careful when you're also looking up your Latin roots and you're making sure that you have the actual Latin description or the definition of what that is, because lute actually has its very own word when you're just looking up lute as the English language. Yeah, honey.
Like, but what is the, like, when you're saying loot, as in I'm looting up a place?
That's L-O-O-T, and that is a homophone. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So make sure you have the right loot. So thank you, Paul, that you're not getting confused. You need to have the correct definition of the actual Latin root and not something else. So we have it's out of or from, and then the Latin root part is to wash. So when you actually put these together, it means to wash out of. And so when you come up here and you have elution, then you're understanding. You're washing out of something. And then out of a group or a certain function. Then when you're putting it all together, you're able to understand the actual process and where it really came from, and you're able to understand this definition better if you go back to where it originated from and the true meaning of what each part actually means. Okay, equate. It means being equal to or comparable or comparable to whatever it is that you're wanting to use. So are we going to use this word properly? So when you're wanting to use this word, or let's say it's a dictionary word or your vocabulary words at school, and you're trying to understand this and actually use this in a sentence properly, let's figure out what it means. Well, we have equa, that means equal. And then we have ATE, and here it would mean rank or office. So you're being equal to, or you're comparable to somebody of a rank or an office. Does that make sense? How you would understand this word better? You're equal to them in a rank or an office. Kind of fun to decode that word a little bit and help you understand it better. Into INE, which can say different sounds. It says in or ein or een, depending on what it is. Now remember, unit sound sits in multi-syllable words. They will not sit in a one-syllable word, and we have a one-syllable word here. And this says shine. And this will not be a unit syllable because it's a silent E syllable. This E is jumping over and making this I long. Shine. So if you have basically two words, two vowels sitting in here and they're separated like this, you have a silent E syllable. So if you have more than two vowels is where, if you have INE, is where you will probably have a unit sound or a unit syllable sitting in there. Does that make sense, boys? Yeah? Okay, so now we have shine. Shine it can be used either as a noun or a verb. So How are we going to tell? Oh, if somebody says, I want you to use this shine as a noun, as the noun.
Like he was shining.
Okay, so that is your verb.
The shining of the star.
But so now you're adding and putting on your ing, right? Star. The shine,
Actually.
that is the noun. Very good. But I can see where you're coming from. So the shining of the star was bright. Okay?
Beautiful.
But what if we just want, it's harder to actually just take the actual noun, because a lot of times when you think shining, it's going to be your verb, right? That's why that's kind of tricky, because you think shining is the verb, but you put the in front of it. So if you can put the in front of your word, then that will help you say, okay, the shine of the light. So a lot of times you'll have to use a prepositional phrase to help you understand. The shine of the light was bright. Okay? Now, what about putting it as a verb?
You shine like a light bulb.
Oh, yes. So now you have you as your subject and shine is your verb. You shine like a light bulb. So perfect, Daniel. That is perfect. So see how you can use that as the subject and the verb. Now it's really important that you understand the noun or the verb, because nouns, they can sit in many different positions in your sentence, but the verb is the simple predicate always. And so you have your verb and your noun as the subject and the predicate. You have to have the actual subject to match your predicate. And you can't just say, you have to make sure you're putting that in the proper position if you want to use it as a subject. Now you can have shine sitting in many positions in your sentence as the noun, but you can't as the verb. The verb has to sit in the simple predicate position. Does that make sense, boys?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you are, the past participle in the verb is shown. And do you see how this one's irregular? And we were talking about that a little bit earlier. See how regular past participles end in ed, but irregular past participles end in something like this. Do we say that?
No, we say shine.
We say shown.
Shown?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. The past participle is, we don't say shined or shined. And you're right. We don't even say shined. We say shined, but it's actually shown. So it's an irregular. Okay? So be careful when you're doing your past participles, when you're putting it in the past. Okay? That's the proper way to use it. And you will be using this in your perfects too, because perfects go with helping verbs, right? Okay. Now, if you look into Klein, this is this a unit syllable? It is a noun, you're right. But is it a unit syllable?
No.
It's not, because it's a one syllable word. This is a silent E syllable. Can you see that okay, Polly?
Yeah.
And it's actually somebody's name, or it is Greek and it means to lean. So it's important to understand. See how you just go in and you find the Greek origin and you're understanding what this means. Align, this word right here is this a unit syllable? It is. It's in a multi-syllable word. Now you could also have it in a multi-syllable word and it not be unit syllable, but it should be in a compound word if that's the case, because both of those words are the accent. This align is actually typically not the word that you would typically use most of the time. Typically you would use this word with an organization of people. Okay? This is actually the true word that you should use when you're organizing people. But this word is the word that's mostly used for everything. And it's not wrong if you use that, but this word is mostly for organization of people. And this one is really just mostly a straight line. I thought that was really interesting. Don't you guys think that's interesting? So you can figure out what the difference is. But if you use this to use this, it's correct. I actually really thought this was a really interesting word. It's, do you want to say that word?
Organzine.
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 Organzine, good. So, all right, so this word right here, organzine, it's a raw silk thread usually used as a warp thread in textiles. It comes from the French and Italian. So we have, see how this said E right here, boys? It's not coming from our language. You okay, buddy? It's not coming from our language, so it's saying E.
Which one?
Try to pronounce this word.
Thermoha.
Hey.
Hey. Thermoa.
So when you're having more words that's in the sciencey field, oftentimes it will say ein. So thermohaline, or it could be thermohaline. Both, I've heard it both ways. This is an adjective. What's an adjective again, boys?
Something that describes a noun.
Yes, it describes a noun. What is a noun?
A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea.
Exactly. Now, the definition is relating to both the temperature or salinity of ocean water. Let's just go in right off the bat, instead of looking up different words that you're not truly understanding. Let's just go into the origin of the word so we can understand it. Therm is Greek and it's warm. And this is something that you should memorize. This will be in so many words. It means warm. Halio, Haley, halo, hell, or hall. It means salt or the sea. So you know that it's going to be the warmth of salt or the sea. Does that make sense? But you know right here, if it says the ocean water, you know it's going to be the salt of the sea and in the ocean. I really liked this as an actual example of how to use the word thermohaline or thermohaline as an adjective. And I got this off of the dictionary site, the Cambridge.org. The whole ocean is involved in a slow thermohaline circulation. See how you're using this to describe circulation. This right here is a noun, and this is your adjective. Do you see that? It's describing circulation. It's a thermohaline circulation. Okay, we're going to move into ITE, and I'm focusing on the science realm. And I really think it's important that we focus on science words also, so that you're not scared of them. Are you guys scared to read science words? I kind of am. So let's tackle these science words. They're harder to read because we don't hear them all the time. But I think it's important that we read them. So they're harder to read because we don't hear them often. And so we don't understand where the accent will be. You know, it's hard to just like break them apart. It's easy. Even if you're good at decoding words, it's still difficult to read these right off the bat sometimes because we just don't hear them. All right, so let's go ahead and start with, and I did pour the symbols on the words that just so you can see, they're trickier to read. This says Andalusite. So if you're having a hard time, first slow it down. Andalusite. See how you slow it down and then you can read it quick. Do you guys see how you slow it down and then read it quick? Austenite. Also, in the science realm, you have ITE typically says it. It doesn't say it. If you know that it's going to be a science word, read it as it and not it. Okay, boys? Stibnite, chlorite, campsite. Is this right here a science word?
No.
No, it's a compound word. So when it's a compound word, this is a silent E syllable. This is not a unit syllable right here. So you just need to make sure that you are understanding that. These right here are unit syllables. They're multi-syllable words that say it. But this one is not one, because sight is its very own word. Perlite, sodalite, rollamite, appetite, and appetite. These are confusables. So make sure that you understand right here, Daniel. See how the difference right here? This is a chameleon prefix. This is not. See how they can be confused. Make sure that you guys get the right ones down. Indict or indict. See how these are so similar that, do you guys remember what in means? Not or into, and dict typically is what you say, but in here it's diked. Do you remember what that is, Paul? Say or to speak. So see how this is something totally...
Oh yeah, dict.
Yeah. So you're saying or speaking into, okay? Anyways, be careful with those. Hesite. See how that one? Daniel, read this one. Norite. Nice. How about this one? Website. Is this a science word?
No.
But this is a compound word. This right here is not a unit syllable because it's its very own word. All right? How about this one? Read that one.
Nitrite.
Nitrite. How about this one?
Zoolite.
Zeolite. Does that make sense? Wartzite, melanite, eclogite, right? Remember, we don't say gite because this is an E, I, or Y. So if you have an E, I, or Y followed by a G or a C, it's going to change this sound. And it moves the G's to J. Eclogite. Crocolite. How about this word? Try this one. Rhyolite. How about this one? Saprolite. Or even saprolite. How about this one? Yeah, see, you kind of like move it into, and just say a word because it's hard to read. Now, it's really important that if you see a CH and you know it's in the science area, it's most likely Greek. It probably is Greek. And you need to say that as k. Right here, right off the bat, you just say it's a k sound. Chalcocite. Chalcocite. So just slow it down when you're trying to read these words. Chalcocite. Pentlandite. Pentlandite. So even say it a couple times. Pentlandite. So just slow it down. Try that one. You have right here, this I is saying E because of this vowel. That is not going to say J. That's going to say G because that is not an E, I, or Y. That's going to say gar, ni, Garnierite. Does that make sense? So just decode your words that you know how to decode, so don't be afraid of them. Melanite, ooh, try this one. Just so it's a key right here, CHR will always be Greek. Here you might have to say, oh, could it be Greek? You know it's in the science world, so it's probably Greek. But CHR, you don't even have to guess. It is Greek, so you say cur right there. So knowing that, Daniel, read that word. Rhodochrosite or rhodochrosite, both are correct. Try that one. Linite. Indite. Okay, so this is so much chemistry right here. Minerals. Don't be afraid of it. Flea bite. Bite is its very own word. This is not a unit syllable. So it is a silent E syllable in this word. Favorite. This is a suffix right here. And it's added on to favor. All right? Home site. Is this, what kind of word is that? It's a compound word. So, a silent E syllable. It has its very own words. All right. Anyways, you guys, I really hope that you will not be afraid of tackling words. They can be a little bit scary to just dive in. But really, if you know how to decode and you understand some of your Greek words, you can do this. You might not know the meaning, you'd have to study the meaning, but still, at least you can read them and not be scared of them. So have fun with your dictionary words. Have fun with your vocabulary words. Have fun parsing. So hi everyone, we had a question from Nilton. So I have some difficulty with vowel teams, AE, OH, AI, etc., because they make more than one type of sound depending on the word. I would like to know if there is any rule that I can apply to the different types of sounds. So this is a really great question. And so I'm first going to address these vowel teams and talk a little bit more about these specific ones. And then we'll go into the other ones. Now these aren't all of the vowel teams. I just focused on the ones that can be a little bit more difficult. And so we have the AI and the AY that say A. And the AI goes in the middle of words. We do not see this at the end of words because I's do not belong at the end of our language. The Italian language, if it doesn't actually belong in our language, like fettuccine, rigatoni, spaghetti, they're not part of the English language. We borrowed them. Okay, so AI also will most likely be in one-syllable words because in multi-syllable words, you use the open A, long A sound, but you will see these in multi-syllable words because sometimes you can't use the long A to make the word the sound that you really need it to say. Now, if you want A at the end of a word, you need to use AY most of the time. And AY, well, you say, well, I've seen AY in the middle of a word. That's because you have seen AY as with suffixes added onto it. Because once we add suffixes onto this, so look at this word. So we have pray, and we're going to add our suffix ed, and prayed. So you have AY in the middle of a word, but really you have your base word pray. We do not change the Y to I because of this vowel right here. That's a spelling rule. So if you see a vowel in front of your Y, you don't change the Y to an I. Or you just say, I don't change vowel teams, because vowel teams, if you have an AY, an EY, an OY, you don't change that Y to an I if there's a vowel here. So that would be really, truly at the end of your word with suffixes added onto it. It's the same thing right here where you have oi, like oink, that's in the middle of a word. And then we have oi, like boy, at the end of a word. And you don't change this vowel team. So if you look at this word, Roy, which means king, and then you add on your suffix al, yeah, you have this in your base word. That's the reason why this is sitting in the middle of a word. Now this could be a little bit more confusing down here. OA, they sit in the middle of words because A's, when they're at the end of words, which are at the hundreds and hundreds of words, it turns to the schwa sound. Well, you say, well, I've seen OA at the end of a word, like boa constrictor. What happens here is it breaks apart and becomes two syllables. And they're both open. And this turns to schwa and open O, open A. And so you have a two syllable here. And that's what happens to this if it's at the end of a word. And then this is really where you see vowel teams at the end of words. OW, it says O at the end of a word. OE says O says O, and well, right here, OE, most of the time they will be sitting on one syllable words. They're small, like toe, T-O-E. But they will be on bigger words too. But most of the time, that's where you see this vowel team. And then we have EA, which has three different sounds. It has A, E, and E. And E is the most used sound in this right here. And then, so when you're trying to figure out, there's not really a rule to see which one should I say? There's not anything that identifies it except for really studying your words and hearing them and using them as spelling words. And maybe you can even bunch them together, a whole bunch that will have E, and use them as spelling, so you can identify them. Or something that has E to identify them, and A. So, but I would start with, we're gonna go through a whole bunch of different words that say these different sounds, and this is how I teach my students when they're trying to figure out how a word works. Then first you would start with E, then I would go with E, and then I would go with A. But also EA, EA, see how it doesn't go at the end of words as an actual vowel team. So we have, it can also split at the end of a word like that. And this will typically be E, and this will be its schwa sound. E-a. Which is unusual. It's not typically following the spelling rules, because when you hear E-a, it's I-A. But sometimes we have words that do not follow the spelling rules, like EA. And I have a few up here that we can talk about. So, So when we look at this word right here, let's start with E first and see if we can figure it out. Greet. Well, that is a real word if we're saying E. So let's keep going on just to see if we have all of them. If you don't know what this word is at all. So we say greet. And then we would go to gret. Well, that's not a real word. And then we would go to great. So now you have to figure out, well, greet and great are the words. So which one is the true one that actually goes to that word? And that is the word great. Let's do the same thing here. So let's start with wreath, okay? Well, that is a real word. Then we have wreath. That is not a real word. And we have wraith. That's not a real word. So we know that word is wreath. Season. Saying E. Okay, well, let's go to season. It's not a real word. Season. So we know that word is season. So this is just really helping you when you're trying to read the word. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go here. We want breakage. Never heard of that. Breakage. I've heard of Breckenridge because we've been there, but we don't have that as a regular word that you would put in a sentence. Or breakage. Well, breakage, break is your base word. That would be the way you would read that. Okay, we have EA at the end of this, so you know it's going to break apart. Right there. Core, knee, Okay, so when it sits at the end of the word, it is not going to be a vowel. I'm sure there's an exception to the rule, but it's not. That's how you would do that. Okay, let's try this one. Heaven. Never heard of that. Heaven. Okay, we've heard of heaven. How about haven? Oh, we've heard of haven. So you're going to also need to figure out, if you have them, which one actually goes with this word. And this one is heaven. So let's start with here. Please. It's E. Okay? Breathe. The D is silent in this one. Breath. Okay, so EA, E, steam. We're just going to go ahead and go on, but that's how you kind of go. EA, deedly. How about deadly? Okay, you've got your word. Now, also this happens with an EA, where sometimes it will break. See, here's your ATE unit sound here. So this is going to be long, and this is going to say 8. Create. So that can be a little bit tricky. So you could always say crete, cret, crate, and we do have crate. So that's when you're going to have to say ooh. But so you're going to have to play with your words a little bit to get this. And that might even help you if you have an ATE or something like that to see, ooh, maybe that is a unit sound. And we went through that in this last lesson. Well, league, it's saying E. Bean, it's saying E. See how there's more E's in the EA. Yearly. Eel, real. Okay? Learn. That doesn't make sense. Learn. How about learn? Also, EA, when it's by the R, is a little bit tricky because you're going to hear short E sound. But it's a vowel R sound where you hear with this one when it's next to your R. So when you have an R, you might have to play with the word a little bit. Heavy, heavy. You can stop. Now this one also is a tricky word. How about linear? Linear. How about linear or linear? It's hard to even say that word. This breaks right here. Lin, E, er. See how AR says at the end of a word? Lin, E, er. This is actually a really hard word for so many people to even read. Okay? So you might see that. Leak, let's leave it, it's a leak. Pancreas, oh, I was going to say the word. So easy just to say the word. Pancreas, so we can say pancreas, pancreas, pancreas. It doesn't make any sound that you would expect it to hear, so break it. This is a closed day, it's going to switch to schwa. So just break it apart if it's just absolutely not turning into a word. So this is an organ in your body that if it gets really sick, my mom actually died from pancreatic cancer from that. Anyways, we have ready, ready. Repeat, so you can just keep going. ID, and it's at the end, so you know it's going to break. Idea. So that's going to say it's long sound and this is going to switch to schwa. So if it's sitting at the end, you know to just go ahead and break it. Okay, so now we have beach. How about heath? Nope. How about health? Go on after that. Teacher, T. Okay, saying that sound. Now, I thought this was really interesting, and I'm so glad that you brought this up, especially for people that's really trying to get their words down and enjoy their, just learn their words better. Focus on these vowel teams. These vowel teams right here, Frey, it's Scottish. Aspene, it's a medical term. Urisa, it's Egyptian. You don't focus on this until you have this down, and then you want to go into that section. This is not in our language, or is medical, or is probably even something else. Do not study this unless if you're trying to learn English, don't be studying this right now. Be focusing on these vowel teams and some of these ones I just featured here, but I did do a video on vowel teams. Feature these. Don't feature this when you're doing your studies if you're really trying to learn. Also, we have the OH. Well, this is the same kind of thing as the AE. OH, so we have, we have OH. We have right here, it just says O. This is actually a word. And this right here, if you say ode, it's the past participle of this. So remember, our ED is our past participle. Now just remember that. Now we have Fron, it's German, and Johnny, which is a medical term. And so go put your Johnny on. Can you please? And you probably wouldn't even know really what this means. I know we do have the word John, but that is spelt that way. But you wouldn't even really know what this was if you weren't studying in the medical field. So I would not use these. If you're trying to study and understand English, don't focus on these two vowel teams. You will confuse you and probably even make you irritated and upset. So focus on these vowel teams and some of the other vowel teams I featured in the other videos, and save these for later. I'm not saying don't study these, but save them for later, for when you really have your grammar down, because this will make you really frustrated if this is what you're trying to study when you're first starting out, or even older, when you're really trying to get your language down. This will still even make you a little bit frustrated because you're not sure what to do with it. All right, that's it. All right, we will see you later.